Okay, so we are going to take a look at Chapter 3, Section 3, X and Y Intercepts. So first of all, let's talk about what X and Y intercepts are. First of all, an X-intercept is the point where the graph of a line crosses or intersects the X-axis. It's also the point where Y is 0, because if you're on the X-axis, Y is always 0. So it always is an ordered pair where you have some X value, comma, 0. And then the Y-axis, or the Y-intercept, is a point where the graph of your line crosses or intersects the y-axis, and it always has the coordinate pairing 0, comma, y. And so we can see that on the example graph, in which case the red line is drawn, and you can see the point of the x-intercept and also the point of the y-intercept. Let's go back. Sorry about that. No, I want to go back. Okay, sorry. So example 1, we are going to practice finding the x and y intercepts for the graph of this particular equation. So we have 3x plus 2y equals 6, and we want to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. In other words, if we were to graph that, where would that line cross the x-axis and where would it cross the y-axis? So first of all, to find the x-intercept, what you do is you take the equation and you plug in a 0 for y. Because remember, if it's the x-intercept, it's the point where y is 0. So we plug in 0, and then we solve the equation for x. So in this case, 2 times 0 is just 0, so we're left with 3x equals 6. Divide both sides by 3, and that'll give you that x is 2. So the x-intercept is 2, or in other words, it's the point 2, comma 0, because when y is 0, x is 2. And then to find the y-intercept, we take the same equation, but now we're going to plug in 0 for x, because the y-intercept is always the point where x is 0. So we plug in 0 for x, and then we solve the equation for y. So 3 times 0 is just 0. 2y equals 6, so we divide by 2 and find that y is 3. So the y-intercept is 3, or in other words, that pertains to the point 0, comma 3. So that is our y-intercept. Okay, so that's how you always go about finding both the x and the y-intercept. For the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y, and for the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. So now let's look at how we can use the x and y intercepts to graph an equation. So we've been practicing graphing equations by creating a table of x and y values and then using those points to graph an equation. Well, now we can take an equation and rather than just using random points, we can use the x and the y intercepts. So this is the same equation from example 1, in which case we found the x-intercept to be 2, and the y-intercept we found was 3. Now remember, the x-intercept, that's a point on the x-axis. So in other words, that is the point 2, comma 0. Notice we have a number in place for the x-intercept, and then for the y-intercept, that's the point 0, comma 3. There's a number in place of the y-coordinate. So these are the intercepts of this graph. So if we were to graph this line, it would intersect at the intersect the x-axis at the point 2, 0, so this point here, and it would also intersect the y-axis at the point 0, 3. So there you have 2 points that are on the graph of this line, and so we can simply use those 2 points to graph our line. So use those points, and then just like you normally would, draw your line and put your arrows at each end. finally, we're going to just simply look at a graph and talk about how we can identify the x and the y intercepts. So here's the graph of a line. We haven't been given an equation, just simply the graph. But we could look at this graph and we could see where the x-intercept is. Again, remember, this the x-intercept is the point. Intercept is the point where the line crosses the x-axis. So here is our x-axis, this line here, and the line crosses right here at the point -1, 0. So we can say that the x-intercept is -1, or we can actually write it as the point -1, 0. And then the y-intercept, that's the point where the line, or the graph, crosses the y-axis. So here's our y-axis, and we can see the line that's been graphed intersects at this point right here. So we can say that the y-intercept is -2, because on the y-axis the line crosses at -2, or more specifically, that's the point 0, comma, -2.